And from here, we can see that our x0 square plus y0 square is between 0, 0 is less than x0 square plus y0 square, which is less than 2p. So when the value of k is 1, we get that our x0 square plus y0 square is equal to p. So our theorem is being proved that we can write p as the sum of two square, that is x0 square plus y0 square. So pigeonhole principle. So what is the pigeonhole principle? Suppose we have n objects which are placed in m boxes, and if our n is greater than equal to m, that is our objects are greater than the box is greater than a box, then some box will contain at least two objects. Suppose we have 5 boxes and we have 6 objects. So at least in one box there will be 2 objects. So this is what the pigeonhole principle is. And then a lemma is that Thew's lemma says that let P be a prime and GCD of A and P will be equal to 1. Then congruence, that ax is congruent to y modulo p, which admits the solution of x0 y0, where our mod of x0 is between 0 and root p and y0 is between 0 and root p, which we have already discussed while proving this theorem.
Okay. Is it done?
So yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions? Anyone of you? Okay, Mahima. So yours is over. Yeah. We'll go to Achla.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, yeah, it is audible and
yes, sir.
Slides are visible. You can go ahead.
So, good morning. Today we are going to talk about 3 and 4 square theorems. The motivation behind studying this is basically, if suppose we're given a natural number k, we can write k as 1 square plus 1 square up till, k times, right? So given any natural number, this is possible, but there's nothing special about this, right? So the number of squares whose sum you're taking depends on the number you're given on k. So a better thing to do here would be to see if we can find some t naught in n, some natural number t naught, such that given any k in n, you can write k as a sum of t naught squares, right? So what Mahima did was she talked about 2 square theorem. So which basically said that any positive integer n can be represented as a sum of 2 squares if and only if each of its prime factors that are of the form 4k plus 3, they occur to an even power. So that means there are some numbers which cannot be written as a sum of 2 squares. So that t naught that we were talking about, that we want to find, that is clearly not equal to 2. Okay, so can someone quickly give me some numbers that cannot be expressed as a sum of 2 squares? If you have a number, you can just unmute and speak, please. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, you are audible. Yes.
Okay. So
7, for example.
Right. Okay. Any more? Anybody else?
What is the smallest number which cannot be written as sum of 2 squares?
3.
3.
Right. Okay. Great. And some others include, well, 6. Then you also have 7. 7, as Amaya said, 11, and many more. So clearly we know that t naught is not equal to not equal to 2. So the most natural thing is to check if you can write these numbers as sum of 3 squares, right? One thing to note here is that if you can express a number as sum of 2 squares, you can express it as a sum of 3 squares also. What you do is just add 0 square. So 0 is allowed here, right? So the numbers that we could not express as sum of 2 squares were, some of them were 3, 6, 7, 11. Can we quickly check if these can be expressed as sum of 3 squares? Can we write 3 as sum of 3 squares? Yes, you can write it as 1 square plus 1 square plus 1 square. 6, can we do that? 6, anybody?
Yes, 2 square plus 1 square plus 1 square.
Right. And if we check for 7, 7 is not expressible as a sum of 3 squares. That is easy to check. So again, T naught is not equal to 3, but there are other numbers also that cannot be expressed as sum of 3 squares, right? Listing some of them. Okay, some of these are, so 7 is one of them. Then you have 15, you have 23, you have 28, you have 31. But what form do these numbers take? Can we find a general pattern? Also, so we just said that 3 can be expressed as sum of 3 squares, and also 5 can be expressed as a sum of 3 squares. You can write 5 as 2 square plus 1 plus 0. So, but when you take the product of these, so 3 into 5 is 15. Can we write 15 as a sum of 3 squares? We can't. So one observation here is that even if the primes, or even if you have two numbers that can be expressed as a sum of 3 squares, their product may not necessarily be representable as a sum of 3 squares. That is an important observation. Okay. So the general form that we were talking about, that is what the sum of the 3 square theorem talks about. So Legendre's 3 square theorem states that a number n is of the form 4 to the power r into 8s plus 7 for r and s non-negative, if and only if it cannot be expressed as a sum of 3 squares. So the examples that we were looking at, 15, 23, 28, 31, these do, I mean, it holds for them, right? So we have some intuition, we have some examples, we can try to work out the proof. So what we are going to do today is just look at one way. We are going to look at a number. So if a number is given, which is of the form 4 to the power r into 8s plus 7, we try to prove that it cannot be expressed as a sum of 3 squares. We're not going to look at the converse. It's a little tricky and it's not given in Burton also for the same reason. So we just try to prove this today. So given an n in n, which is of this form, we try to prove that it is not we cannot express it as a sum of 3 squares. Okay, so one thing to note here is that n is, if the number is of the form 4 to the power r into 8s plus 7. Now this 8s plus 7 just means that it is congruent to, I mean, okay, let's not talk about that yet. What we do is we try to prove this in two steps. We first look at when r is equal to 0. Basically, the number takes the form 8s plus 7, which means the number is congruent to 7 modulo 8. And for the second case, we look at the second part is where we look at the case where r is greater than 0, which means, we look at the case when r is greater than 0 and try to proceed by the method of contradiction and use the first case to prove it. Just giving a rough idea here. Let's try to prove this. So if r is equal to 0, then you have the expression is just 8s plus 7. So if a in n, I'm sorry, this is a belonging to n. A belonging to n be given, and so by the division algorithm, we know that a is congruent to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or 6, 6 or 7 modulo 8. So a square is congruent to the square of the remainders modulo 8, which means a square takes the form, it is either congruent to or 4 modulo 8. This we had done this result earlier in class, just written it down. So this a here was arbitrary. So given any ABC in Z, we know that a square plus b square plus c square will be congruent to. So if a square leaves remainder 0, 1 or 4, and so does b square and c square. So we just try to take all the possible combinations, and we arrive at the conclusion that a square plus b square plus c square will not be congruent to 7 modulo 8 in any cases. So any combination of these numbers that you take, you will not get 7 in any case. So that means that a square plus b square plus c square is never equal to 8s plus 7 for any ABC in Z. Now we look at the case when r is greater than equal to 1. So
1 minute.
yes,
1 minute. Yeah, see, everyone followed or not? Let us check once.
Okay.
So is all of her clear? You have any one of you has a doubt? She just now proved that 8 is any number of the form 8k plus 7 cannot be written as sum of 3 squares. So obviously it cannot be written as sum of 2 squares also. Of course, it is not a square number. So all these numbers require at least 4 squares to represent, right? So Diva, is it clear to you this part up to here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Yeah, please go ahead, Achla.
So now we look at the case when r is greater than or equal to 1. Proceed by the method of contradiction. We say that, let's say there exists ABC in Z such that the 4 to the power r into 8s plus 7 is equal to the sum of the squares of these numbers. Now let's make some observations here. So we know that 4 to the power r is congruent to 0 mod 4. And when you multiply 8s plus 7, it is still congruent to 0 mod 4. So, but from here we know that 4 to the power r into 8s plus 7 is equal to a square plus b square plus c square. That is our assumption. So we get that a square plus b square plus c square must be congruent to 0 mod 4. But we also know that given any integer, the square of the integer is congruent to either 0 or 1 modulo 4. That is, the squares always take the form 4k or 4k plus 1. So again, if a square leaves the remainder either 0 or 1, and b square also does the same thing, and so does c square, the sum of these, what form can they take? They can either be congruent to 0, 1, 2, or 3 modulo 4. This is very easy to check here. So you fix 0 here and 0 here, and then you look at 0 and 1. Then you keep this 0 fixed, consider 1, and then again 0 and 1 that way. That's how we've gotten this. But then from this, we know that this a square plus b square plus c square must be congruent to 0 mod 4. So these cases, we just get, you can't consider these cases. So it only has to be the case where it is congruent to 0 mod 4. And when will that happen? When all of these numbers leave the same remainder, that is 0. That means a square is congruent to 0 mod 4. What does that mean? When can the square take the form 4k? What can we say about a if we know that a square takes the form 4k? We know that a is even, right? So is b, and so are b and c. So we can write a as 2a1, b as 2b1, and c as 2c1. Again, we do not know about if a1, b1, and c1 are odd or even. We just know that these are some integers. And so we can just substitute that here, and we get 4 to the power r into 8s plus 7 is equal to 2a1 square plus 2b1 square plus 2c1 square. When you simplify this, you get this, and the most natural thing to do here is cancel out this 4 that was common. So we have 4 to the power r minus 1 into this is equal to a1 square plus b1 square plus c1 square. Now,
Yeah, just stop here. Yeah.
yes, sir.
So how many of you are still clear now? So first, what are the first important steps here? Someone can tell in this proof till now, what is the first important step actually? You know that a square is congruent to 0 or 1 mod 4, b square is congruent to 0 or 1 mod 4, c square is congruent to 0 or 1 mod 4, but a square plus b square plus c square is congruent to 0 mod 4. From that, what is the conclusion? Any one of you?
So if we have a square plus b square plus c square is congruent to 0, then it is only possible when all of them are 0.
All of them are 0. That is the main, one of the crucial step here. A square is congruent to 0 mod 4, b square is congruent to 0 mod 4, and c square is congruent to 0 mod 4. That one has to understand. Once that is done, then a, b, c are even numbers. So 4 divides them. So we wrote a, b, c are like that, and final part is this. Okay. So can you guess what is that going on? Without Achla tells, somebody can guess that what is the next step. Why she done this way, and what is your prediction about the next step? What happened till now?
This is the method of infinite descent.
Okay, so but that is okay. Descent is fine, but what happened? You just first tell me, then later we'll say that is called method of descent.
So
What
we
happened?
arrived at the same expression that we started with.
But
So slightly
R,
similar, but r, the power of r is less by 1.
it is decreased by 1. So what happens? Now I'll start from here, right? I can decrease again r minus 1 by one more step. It becomes r minus 2. Right. So what happens if you go like that? Diva?
Sir, finally it becomes r minus r.
That becomes 0.
Yes.
Then what happens?
So we have
Then
8
becomes, no.
plus 7 is equal to a1
Some-
square plus b1 square plus
Ah,
c1 square.
Some ak square plus ar square plus, right?
Yes, sir.
Ar square plus br square.
Oh,
plus
yes, sir.
CR.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Why I am told r? When minus 1, it is a1, b1, c1. When it is 2,
With
a2.
a2, b2, c2.
Like that, each time we are writing this 4 r minus r into 8s plus 7 also like that.
Yes.
Now that contradicts the
Assumption that 4r, 4 raised to r.
no. This is a contradiction for which part? Finally, you got 8s plus 7 is equal to ar square plus br square plus cr square. That is a contradiction for what?
For this 8s plus 7 is not equal to a.
We already proved that first part is that 8s plus 7 cannot be written as sum of 3 squares. We already done.
Yeah.
This proof is a combination of two parts. She already mentioned. Very nicely, she mentioned what is we are going to do. She mentioned clearly. She told that the two parts are there. First part is that we prove 8s plus 7 cannot be written as sum of 3 squares. But using that, we'll prove that 4 power r into 8s plus 7 cannot be written as sum of 3 squares. Further, she clearly mentioned that we'll prove by contradiction. All of them mentioned earlier, and now we got it. Yeah, I think this is done. It is better to move forward.
Yes.
So the time will be saved. Yeah.
Okay. So this was some of Legendre's theorem for sum of 3 squares. The next part is like Lagrange's 4 square
But
theorem.
before that, I want to just tell one point that you are very nicely mentioned actually. So sometimes even I will also forget, but you do not forget that. See, 3 is sum of 3 squares and 5 is sum of 3 squares. So the product is not sum of 3 squares. But this has a long history actually. See, you see that now you start reading this chapter, you will realize that if A and B are sum of 2 squares, then product is also sum of 2 squares. Similarly, A and B are sum of 4 square, their product is also sum of 4 square. That anyhow she is going to tell, but I told beforehand because so similar thing is not done for the sum of 3 squares. If A and B are written as sum of 3 square, then product cannot. But that has a long history. Hamilton, one person. So he tried actually to find a field in like R cube, isomorphic to R cube, right? So in physics and many places that plays a major role. So Hamilton, quaternions and all, they came because of that. Okay. So, but here also we'll use quaternions in 4 squares. But while solving it, he came to know that the quaternions and all, but he also proved by the way that there is no field. R cube cannot be converted into a field, whatever the operation you take. So that also very important. So there is a lot of history actually, a lot of struggle there. That is what I want to just convey. Yes, now you can go actually.
Yes. So some of the numbers that we saw could not be expressed as a sum of 3 squares were 15, 23, 28, 31, all of these. But can we express those as sum of 4 squares? That was the question. And so Lagrange proved that any number, any positive integer n can be written as sum of 4 squares, and sum of which may be 0. That is, if you have 1, you can write it as 1 square plus 0 square plus 0 square plus 0 square. So 0 is allowed. So this proof is a little lengthy, and so we can just sort of discuss the ideas roughly so that we don't feel lost at any point later. So we saw that in the case of 3 squares, if we know that the primes were expressible as a sum of 3 squares, the product was still not, we could not express the product as sum of 3 squares. So so that is what is different here for 4 square, for the 4 square theorem. If we have just a second. Yeah, so if we have a positive integer n and we want to show that it can be expressed as a sum of 4 squares, what we can do is, we know that we can write n as the product of its prime factors. So the two things that we are going to do is, we are first going to see if let's say if n is equal to n1 into n2 into up till nk, and each of these ni's can be expressed as a sum of 4 squares, we are going to see if or not product can be expressed as a sum of 4 squares. First, we are only going to consider n is equal to n1 into n2. We're going to try to check for the product of two numbers, and see if that works. And the second thing we're going to do is, if n is expressed as a product of its prime factors, let's say n is equal to p1 into can we prove that every prime number can be expressed as a sum of 4 squares? So if we try to show both these, we will be done, because given any natural number, you can just write it as a product of its prime factors. Once you have the expression for, once you write p each of the prime factors as a sum of 4 squares, you can just take the product and you get the expression for the original number. This is what we are going to do. So the
Just one
first,
question for that.
sorry, sir.
No, just I'm asking the audience. So now, whatever she told till now, that boils down to find what? Someone can come up. Once we prove that if two numbers are written as sum of 4 square, then the product is also written as sum of 4 squares. So she will going to prove that. That is proved. Once we prove that, what is that we need to prove to show that every number is sum of 4 squares? Anyone?
So after this,
It is sufficient to prove for primes are written as sum of 4 squares. Correct. So that is a beauty. So primes are building blocks of natural numbers. So the beauty is that once you, so this theorem is very important. When two numbers is written as sum of 4 square, this product is also. It looks simple, but Achla, do you know who proved this?
Yes, sir. So I was reading up, and this is Euclid's, Euler's this thing,
Euler.
square identity that uses quaternions.
Yeah, quaternions, correct. But thing is that what is that I want to say? Euler actually tried this problem. Want to write every natural number is sum of 4 squares.
Okay.
See, this is one problem he not succeeded. Euler generally never fail, most of the cases, right? He is a prolific mathematician, but this is one problem he little struggled. but he collected all the ingredients. This theorem main part he collected. So he brought many things, but final thing he not done. The
Yeah,
Lagrange.
Lagrange. That.
So 1770. Then Lagrange become. But there is another proof. Jacobian, Jacob. So some other persons are there. So what is that they done is he given a natural number. How many ways you can write? So you are saying existence. Every natural number is written as sum of 4 squares, right? But now I give a natural number. Since we already know that it is written as sum of 4 square, then there is more than one way to write,
Yes, sir.
right? That is the main that entirely changed the number theory. Now area called uh, modular forms and all they came. Okay, circle method and that circle method is one of the main method by these two famous our Ramanujan and Hardy. Okay, of course Hardy and Littlewood, they are the circle method they brought. So that circle method is one of the main method. Okay, so that when while you are counting how many are there, then automatically you are telling that every number is written as sum of 4 square. Are you following? If the
Yes.
if the count comes more than greater than or equal to 1, you are done, right? That is a tougher problem, but there is another technique. With that technique, they've done it. Okay, so that proof also better to see. That give lots of ideas and many branches of mathematics can be learned. I want to tell you one more time that number theory, there are two types of number theory: multiplicative number theory and additive number theory. So toughest part is additive number theory. Okay, still lot of problems. See, Terence Toy and Zamaredi, many great mathematicians become famous. They are famous because of they worked in the even Erdos. Okay, all these people are become famous because they worked in the this theory. Okay, additive number theory. Additive number theory questions are simple. How many can I write sum of sum only, right? But sum is tough. Okay, sorry for taking time. Yeah, please carry on. Yes.
Yeah, I was reading this Jacobi's four square theorem. So I didn't look at the proof, but yeah, I mean the expression that he had given used the division function that we were looking at last class. Last
Right.
class.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carry on. Yeah.
I think somebody was saying something.
Yeah. You continue.
Okay. So this lemma basically states that if we have two natural numbers m and n, which can both be represented as sum of 4 squares, then their product can also be represented as sum of 4 squares. So this is basically your Euler's identity for 4 squares. So what we are doing is this expression is coming from there, and what he did was he took a pair of quaternions meaning, so he took alpha and beta such that, so alpha is some a1 plus a2i plus a3j plus a4k, and beta is b1 plus b2i plus b3j plus b4k. And so alpha into alpha star, where alpha star is the quaternion conjugate. So he multiplied those and tried to look at the product. So this is basically product of, I mean, the norm of this thing is equal to the, just a second, you have alpha and alpha into alpha star, and then beta into beta star, and then it comes out to be alpha beta into alpha beta star. And this is just the Hamiltonian product that we take, and and we get this expression. This is the proof, just the outline for the proof. And so we know that this is the expression that we have. So we are going to use this expression later to sort of find the expression for a big number. So what we are going to do is we are going to prime factorize it and find the expression for the prime factors, and then use this expression to get the expression for the number m into n. We're
Yeah,
going to look at this later.
yeah. See, Achila, it's okay. Can you go back? I'll just want to
Yes.
say a few points.
Yes.
See, one thing is easy that if you simplify it and decide that a1 square plus a2 square, a3 square product will come, obviously, that is not a big deal. But how do you get it that? See, it looks very simple that I can write the sum of this expression like this, but coming to that one is very tough. So can you write here? Are you able to write?
I don't have the graphics.
Pen, some red that is coming. So can you try alpha equal to here? Yeah, alpha equal to
Okay.
possible.
Look
Try.
very dirty, but I'll try.
No, no problem. Yeah, it is very good. So a1 plus plus a2i
I'll just insert a text box here. That will be better. Right. So A is equal to
a1 a1i a1 plus a2i plus a2j a3j plus a3j plus
sorry.
a1 plus a2 a3
Yeah.
a3j plus a4k.
Okay, and B is
b1 like
B1 plus B2 I plus B3 J plus B4 K.
we know quaternion multiplication, right? I into j equal to k minus k,
Yeah, okay.
k and all. Okay, no need to write those things.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll use all of them and we'll multiply AB. Okay, so how many terms will be there in AB, right? So one term will be there that we'll get. See, what is one term we get? A1 into A1, A1 into B1. Hai na? You
Yes.
no need to write that. Okay. A1 into A1 will be there and A2 into B2 also there, right? Minus but, right?
Yes, sir.
The constant term in the product is A1, A1, B1, A2, B2, A3, B3, A4, B4, right?
Right.
So that is one term. And like that, what is I quotient, J quotient, K quotient? Again, it is actually product of two quaternions, again a quaternion. And so now, as usual, like Z1 into Z2, complex numbers. Mod Z1 into Z2 equal to mod Z1 into mod Z2. Same thing will apply here also. Mod AB equal to mod A into mod B. But mod A equal to square root of A1 square plus A2 square plus A3 square plus A4 square, like that. So similar approach. Now that is easy now. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is the way we can get it. So there it plays a role, that quaternions plays a role. Yeah. Okay then. And one more thing I want to tell you here.
Yes.
Next year, if you are doing coding theory, okay, there is a Hadamard matrices. Okay, so I'll tell you at that time Latin squares and all. So there one result is depends upon a natural number is the sum of four squares. So there also they will use it. Means yeah, I'll explain you at that moment. Means A into A transpose is equal to 4i. Some n square I. A into A transpose is equal to n square I. So there also people used this theorem to prove those things. Okay, so many other areas are taken this result actually to prove certain things. Okay, I'll just telling now, and I'll remind you at that time again. Yeah. Okay, please go ahead.
So the next thing that we look at is this lemma that says for any odd prime p, x square plus y square plus 1 is congruent to 0 mod p. This equation has a solution, and further we can find a bound on the solution. So our approach is, so we construct two sets S1 and S2 such that S1 is 1 plus 0 square and 1 plus 1 square, 1 plus 2 square up till 1 plus p minus 1 by 2 square, and S2 is minus 0 square, minus 1 square, minus 2 square up till minus of p minus 1 by 2 square. So wanted this. I mean, the bound was this, so that is kind of the motivation for choosing this here. And this is how we're going to construct S1 and S2. If we look at p equal to 7, we can quickly construct S1 and S2. So S1 will be 1. So p is 7. So p minus 1 is 6 by 2 is 3. Square is 9.
Achila,
Yes, sir.
just wait. I think they can understand. Give some time instead of explanation. Yeah. So please go through it. What are sets S1 and S2, and the entire thing is available here. Go through it, and then we will ready with some questions to ask you.
Make some observations if you can.
Yeah. So I want to write S1. Okay. I want to write S1 in a compact way. How do I write? Someone of you? So here, so it is called roster form. Achila wrote in roster form. Roster form means, for example, I say 3z, 0, 3, 6, 9, minus 3, minus 6. We'll write like that. But we'll write in a compact form later. So all y belong to z such that there exists x in z. Y is equal to 3x. That is called set builder form. So can you somebody tell in set builder form? S1 equal to. Yes, please. S1 is equal to 1 plus x square such that, please come up here.
X belongs to 0, 1, 2 up to p minus 1 by 2.
Yeah, so we need to write S1 is equal, yeah, good. S1 is equal to 1 plus x square, where x belong to 0, 1, 2, 3 up to p minus 1 by 2. Or x, that what she wrote, 0 less than or equal to x less than or equal to p minus 1 by 2. So similarly, can somebody tell what is S2? Not Amiya now.
Oh, sir, minus x square where x belongs to.
Correct. That's fundamental. Minus x square says that x belongs x is equal to 0 to p minus 1 by 2.
P minus 1 by 2.
Very good. Now, how many? So, can you tell me that how many elements are in S1? Take time. Tell me, but. So it takes 0 to p minus 1 by 2. So, how many elements are in S1? Yeah, Diva. Huh? Yes, please. Go ahead. How many elements are in S1?
P minus 1 by 2.
P minus 1 by 2 or p plus 1 by 2?
Oh, 0 is there. P plus.
Yeah, we are starting from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3 up to p minus 1 by 2, right? So p minus 1 by 2 plus 1, right? P plus 1 by 2. Is it? Do you agree now?
Yes.
P plus 1 by 2 agree? Okay. The number of terms in S1 is p plus 1 by 2. How many terms are there in S2?
Same as well.
Okay. Now, next question is that are there any two elements in S1 are same? Is it possible? We are asking that all these are distinct, or is there a possibility that two of them are equal like that?
Do not distinct.
They are distinct. So, example below example p equal to 7 is suggesting that 1, 2, 5, 3, they're all distinct.
No,
0,
yes.
3, 5, they're also distinct, right? Independently, S1 and S2 pay. Right. So is it correct or not correct, or how do you prove it?
Sir, in example, we can say S1 has 3 and S2 has also 3.
Four elements. S1 and S2 has four elements, 7 plus 1 by 2. Okay, you are telling 3 is common. That's what you are telling.
Sir.
No, that is okay. I'm not telling about S1 and S2, some common elements are there. I'm talking about S1 itself. S1 and S2. Is there any two elements in S1 are common? That's the question. I'm not talking about S1 and S2 together. I'm talking about only S1. Is there any possibility that two of them are equal?
Sir,
Yeah. Yes.
sorry, sir. Sorry, let me
No
ask.
problem. Please go through. Yeah, please tell. See, no. See, you are answering for what, Shubhamoy?
No, sir. I have a question.
No, you are not
about
answering. That's okay. What is the question which I asked? Can you repeat that?
Okay, sir. So you have asked that is there any two element that are equal in S1 itself?
Right. Very good. So that is what we need to see, right? That means what is that I am telling 1 plus. So how do you attack the problem? I take two elements, right? I will answer your question also, but before that, I'm just asking you, how do you start? How do you prove it? Whether equal or not? How do you start? We take two elements, right? Arbitrary. How the elements look like in S1? 1 plus a square.
Where x belongs to 0 to p minus 1 by 2.
Yeah, 1 plus a square and 1 plus b square. Am I correct, Shubhamoy?
Yes, sir.
Where a belongs to 0 to p minus 1 by 2 and b also from 0 to p minus 1 by 2. So there are two elements. If they are equal means here equal congruent to modulo p. Equal means congruent to modulo p. Then what happens? So if they are congruent to modulo p, then 1 plus a square is congruent to 1 plus b square. 1 plus a square congruent to 1 plus b square modulo p. What is the meaning of that?
A must be congruent to plus or minus b mod b.
That means that a square is congruent to b square modulo p. Okay, go ahead. Now that means p divides a minus b into a plus b. I'm telling one after the another. No, see, my point is that when I ask these questions, you have to come up fastly. Now I'm not going to tell further. Now you tell us, any one of you, what is happening now? Now p divides a minus b or p divides a plus b. What can be the a plus b value? What can be the a plus b value? So she gave hint also. She circled p minus 1 by 2, p minus 1 by 2. A is maximum is p minus 1 by 2. B is maximum p minus 1 by 2. What can be a plus b maximum value?
So p minus 1.
Oh, maximum p minus 1. Yes, correct. Maximum p minus 1, right? Yes, you are correct. Diva, you are correct. Maximum p minus 1 because maximum value is p minus 1 by 2 both for both even more, both of them are p minus 1 by 2. Even if I add, I'll get p minus 1. So x plus y is, can it be 0 also? A plus b can be 0 also? Yes, right? 0, when it can be 0, a plus b?
If both a and b are 0.
Very good. Both a and b are 0. But in that case, both are equal, right?
Yes.
If one of them is 0, other is non-zero, then it is a strictly lies in between 0 to p minus 1.
P minus 1.
Right?
Yes.
And so both 0 and then both are equal. Okay. So if both are not equal, then p does not divide both of them. Are you able to see that? The main crux is this now. If A and B are not equal, then P does not divide A minus B and P does not divide A plus B also. But P divides one of them. That is a contradiction. So what is the conclusion from that? A has to be equal to B. That means, so I do not find two different elements. So if they are 1 plus A square equal to 1 plus B square, then A equal to B only. That means all these elements are distinct. All these elements are distinct. Okay. If that is difficult for you, then prove the second one. S2 pe all elements are distinct because both are same, only minus sign here. 1 anyhow gets cancelled, right? So that proof will work here also. So somebody can summarize now, not Achila. Somebody can summarize. What is that we done? Regarding S1 and S2. Can you summarize? Okay, I'll start since you are not starting. S1 contains P plus 1 by 2 elements, we proved. S2 also contains P plus 1 by 2 element. That is easy. Just counting 0 to P minus 1 by 2. Then afterwards, what we done? See, Achila, no one is responding.
Is there any two elements in S1 or S2 that are equal?
All elements in S1 are distinct. All elements in S2 are distinct, right? But they are all elements where 0 to P minus 1 by 0 to P minus 1 when you do modulo, right?
Yes, sir.
When you do modulo P, they are all elements from 0 to P minus 1. 0 and P same, okay. So then what we have, total how many elements are there in together in S1 and S2 together?
P plus 1.
P plus 1.
P plus 1, yeah, P plus 1 by 2, P plus 1 by 2, P plus 1 by, so P plus 1 elements are there. So can you say something now?
Yes, sir.
What
So
is
all of them are distinct in S1 and S2, and they are together P plus 1 in number.
So,
But there are only P distinct congruences possible.
So
by pigeonhole principle, some two of them must be the same.
One from S1 and one from S2. They should be equal. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So beautiful proof, right?
Yes, sir.
Very wonderful proof. See, the way sets are also constructed from that x square plus x plus 1 equal to 0. So the beauty is that. So you are telling that y square plus 1, this side, x square, if you take to this side, then it is minus x square. Y square plus 1 is congruent to minus x square mod p. So that is exactly the way we took the sets S1 and S2. And we used the simple logic of pigeonhole principle. So two of them are equal. So proof is done. But very nice logic. S1 contains P plus 1 by 2, S2 contains P plus 1 by 2, all are distinct. And you think that it is simple proof, but it is one of the wonderful proof, actually, one can say. All right, good. So what is the conclusion finally? If you let P be an odd prime, then what is that we proved is that there exists x naught and y naught, okay, between 0 to P minus 1 by 2. That satisfies this for sure.
And we can say that there is exactly one element in S1 intersection S2.
Oh, exactly one. How can you? But here S1, S2, here we can see that 5 and 3.
Oh, sorry.
That we can't say. Yeah, but so for sure one will be there. So solution exists. Okay. So this is one of the important lemma. We'll proceed further. Actually, this is the lemma. Actually, completely changed the Lagrange. Lagrange proved this. Okay, Euler unable to prove this. Maybe we don't know what happened. Actually, we do not have complete picture. Yeah, go ahead, Achila. Now.
So these were the observations that we made and the proofs. So a corollary of this is that any odd prime P can, given any odd prime P, there exists some K which is strictly less than P such that Kp can be expressed as a sum of four squares. So why odd prime? So if we are, so the only even prime is 2, and 2 we know can be expressed as 1 square plus 1 square plus 0 square plus 0 square. So we are just going to talk about the odd primes here. Now by the above corollary, we know that this equation has a solution x naught y naught. Further, we have this bound on the solution. So this means, so x naught square plus y naught square plus 1 is congruent to 0 mod p. This means p divides this left hand side. So there exists some k such that kp is equal to x naught square plus y naught square plus 1 square plus 0 square. So we are already writing kp as a sum of 4 squares. Now we just, what we need to prove is that k is less than p. So we use these bounds that we have, and so x square plus y square, x naught square plus y naught square plus 1 square plus 0 is less than p square. Why is that so? Can anybody comment? So we have the bounds on x naught and y naught. So we have bounds on x naught square and y naught square also.
So it will just be p square by 4 plus p square by 4
Right, right.
and plus 1.
Okay. So we have kp less than p square, which means k is less than p. So we had to prove this because
I'm not clear about what is that you are doing now. Okay, 1 minute. So you told that this is clear, x naught plus y naught square plus 1 is congruent to 0 mod p, where x naught less than p by 2, y naught less than p by 2, then x naught square plus y naught square is less than p square is also clear, plus 1 is less than p square is clear. But how, therefore there exists a k in n such that this part?
oh, okay. So
That is because p divides that quantity.
p divides this left hand side here.
Kp equal. Okay, fine. Okay, that is also fine. So
Yes.
finally, this kp is less than p square. Fine. So then k is less than p. Okay, good, nice.
Okay. So now what we wanted
But
to prove.
conclude actually.
Yes, sir. Okay. So the theorem that we had here was, if we have such an equation, then we have a solution x naught y naught, and we have some bound on the solution. We further proved that if we have an odd prime p, then we can find some k less than p such that kp can be expressed as a sum of 4 squares. We don't know about the prime p, but we know that kp can be expressed as a sum of 4 squares.
Very good. That is the point. Very good. Nice.
Okay. Now the most important thing here, if we have a prime p, then we are claiming that it can be expressed as a sum of 4 squares. So the idea basically here is that, so we prove that kp here, that kp can be expressed as sum of 4 squares. If we manage to prove that k is equal to 1, so we are talking about existence here. So if we manage to prove that k is equal to 1, we will be done.
Very good.
Right?
Very good. No, wait. This is the entire crux of the proof, right? So go back.
Yes.
See, it is not the proof. It is the main happiness comes there. So it is main thing is they are telling is that given odd prime p, any odd prime p, there exists a case that kp is sum of 4 squares. This is the main crux of the proof. As she rightly pointed out, our goal is to show that in fact I can found k equal to 1 also. So at least now there exists a k, but that k, one of the k should be, there exist means maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, we don't know. Now we are telling that one of the such k is 1 also. So if you done that one, then you are showing that every odd prime is sum of 4 squares. 2 is already written as sum of 4 squares. Every prime is written sum of 4 squares. Then we are done. Okay, so this is the main crux and the main important point in the Lagrange's theorem. Given an odd prime p, there exists a case as that kp is expressed as sum of. This depends upon the previous lemma. Right. Okay. Thank you. Go Achila now.
So the idea here is clear. We want to prove that k is equal to 1. So we do this in 2 steps. We first show that k is odd, and then we show that k is equal to 1. Okay. So as I said, if p is equal to 2, we know that it can be expressed as sum of 4 squares. So we talk about odd primes here. by the above corollary, we know that some k1 exists, k1 less than p, such that k1p is equal to sum of 4 squares. Now, so we just know about the existence. We cannot guarantee. It's not that only one k1 exists. One such k1 exists. So let k. We are saying that let k be the least positive integer, such that kp can be expressed as a sum of 4 squares. This is very important. This least positive integer, we are going to try to prove by the method of contradiction, and this is where the contradiction. Oh, I should not have said that. Anyway.
But that's okay. But at this juncture, just we need to ask, why is such least positive integer exists?
Yeah.
Someone can come up. Why such a least positive integer exist? We already know they exist. From that, how do you show there is a least positive integer?
Well ordering principle.
Well ordering principle. Yeah. Okay. Fine. The well ordering principle, there exists a least positive integer such that this we have. Okay.
Okay. So we first try to show that k is an odd natural number. We proceed by the method of contradiction, and so if we say that k is even, then kp is going to be even, right? And when kp is even, and we know that kp is equal to x square plus y square plus z square plus w square, what we can conclude about x, y, z, w and w is that either all of these are odd, or all of these are even, or two of these are odd, or two of these are even. So can we write this in a compact way? Now that we know that either all of these are odd or even, or this, I mean, one of these three cases can only happen, right? So can we write x and y in a compact way? I mean, these integers. So we can, and we can write this as x is congruent to y mod 2 and z is congruent to w mod 2. So this does not violate any of those three cases that we had seen. And further, so we know that kp is equal to x square plus y square plus z square plus w square. Kp by 2 will be equal to this expression here. And so we write x square plus y square, just sort of manipulating here, and x square plus y square is equal to this expression here. So we try to substitute this here, and we get half kp is equal to sum of 4 squares again, right? And so this means k by 2 into p is equal to sum of 4 squares. Does anybody see a contradiction here?
Yeah, now just wait, give some time to observe and come up now. So our goal is, please note that our goal is to show that k is odd. So we started with k is even. When k is even, so now recall something earlier, this type of things which we done.
It's just written here, so I'm just going to say it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's a contradiction to minimality, because then k by 2 is such an integer. So we have found a smaller integer for which this p can be written as
okay. Yeah.
sum of squares.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. So done. Yeah. Go ahead. Actually, we'll complete as early as possible.
Okay. So now we have to show that k is equal to 1. This is a little less intuitive but important. So let's see how we can go about this. So if let's assume to the contrary that k is not equal to 1, then k has to be greater than or equal to 3. Why? Because we just proved that k is odd. So k is greater than or equal to 3 is what we have. Now we had x what did we have here? Okay, kp is equal to this, right? So if we have x and k, we can find a such that x is congruent to a mod k, and similarly we can find b for y and k and c and d. With this condition, I want this condition on the a that we find. So how can we find such an a? We divide x by k, and if the remainder comes out to be less than k by 2, then we write a is equal to r, and if it is greater than k by 2, we just write a as r minus k. That way we have this bound on A, and so that's how we obtain A, B, C, and D, and we have these equations. And so next what we do is we try to square these, and so we have a square plus b plus c square d square congruent to x square plus y square plus z square plus w square, which we know is congruent to 0 mod k because we had kp is equal to this. So basically k divides this. So we have a square plus b square plus c square plus d square congruent to 0 mod k, which means there exists some n such that nk is equal to this sum of squares. Now we want to sort of arrive at a contradiction. Just one second. A square plus b square plus c square plus d square.
1 minute actually. So we'll go again slowly, little 1 minute here. So k not equal to 1 we are assuming, and so k greater than or equal to 3 means k is odd. That part is okay. Now we are claiming that there exist ABCD such that these and mod A less than k by 2. So why, how it is that part?
Can you repeat the question?
No. So here we are claiming there exist ABCD in Z such that x equal to a mod k is okay. With this I can find x, y, w with like this ABCD, where ABCD satisfy this condition. How that?
Okay. So what we do is we divide x by k and we get some remainder r. If this r is less than k by 2, then we put a equal to r. The other case is if r is greater than k by 2, in that case we put a as r minus k.
Okay. Right. Okay, fine, good.
So the reason why we wanted these bounds was so that we can obtain a bound on this sum of squares. Right? So now a square plus b square plus c square plus d square will be bounded above by what will it be bounded above by? 4 into k by 2 square. So k by 2 square plus k by 2 4 times. So we will have k square. This is what the next slide talks about. So we have 0 less than equal to nk less than k square. Now if n were equal to 0, then a square plus b square plus c square plus d square will be equal to 0.
Right.
Which means that
all of them
all of these are 0, which means that k divides x, y, z and w, because these were the remainders, right? So that means if k divides x, this means k divides x square, again k divides y square, z square and w square, hence it divides the sum, and the sum is equal to kp by our assumption. This means k divides p. Is this possible?
No. Possible only when you are already assuming k less than p, right?
Right. So k cannot divide p. Hence, n is not 0. So we have this bound here. 0 is less than n, less than k. Now, what we look at is we consider k square into np. So this is kp into kn, and we know the expression for kp and we have the expression for kn as well, which is so x square plus y square plus z square plus w square into this, so product of two sums of squares, and we have the expression, we had this expression from Euler's identity of four squares. So we have expression for r, s, t and u, where this is what these integers are. Now what we try to show is that k divides r, k divides s, k divides t and k divides u. How is that? So if we look at these equations, so r is basically xa plus yb plus zc plus wd. So we multiply this first equation by a. So we have ax congruent to a square mod k, and this by b, this by c and this by d, and add those, and we get so that will be congruent to 0 mod k. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
So XA plus YB plus ZC plus D into W is congruent to A square plus B square plus C square plus D square mod K, which from here is congruent to 0 mod K. So we have R, K divides R. Similarly, we can prove for S, T and U. This means R by K is an integer, S by K is an integer, T by K is an integer, and U by K is an integer. So we have written NP as, so this was K square into NP. So we can just divide this by K square, and we know that these are going to be integers because we just proved that K divides these integers.
Okay,
So
okay.
R by
Okay, actually, now this part is okay. R, they will divide. So the crux is that K divides R, K divides S, K divides T. This is important, right?
So K is equal to 1.
No, that's okay. No, N is already proved. N 0 is less than N is less than K. NP is written as sum of 4 squares. So that is a contradiction for K is the least element. So we are done. That's okay. K equal to 1. But in this proof, overall proof, where you feel difficulty while doing also, you face some time. We took some time, right?
Yeah.
Which place you took some time?
First
Exactly here, right? Here and means these two last two steps, right?
Yeah, this was a little tricky, according to me.
In particular, that K divides R, K divides S, K divides T, that is the main crux, right?
Yeah, it took me a little while to figure that out.
So, but if you go backward, then you will realize, okay, if I able to prove that one, then NP is written as sum of 4 squares, and N is lies in between 0 to K. That's give the contradiction for K is the least, right? Sometimes it's better to go backwards, and sometimes we may realize what is happening. Yeah. Okay. Good. Nice. So of course, see, entire proof now you cannot recall. This is one actually in this entire course. This is the biggest proof she done today. In fact, I am not done this much big proof till now. Okay, that is first we need to appreciate that. And second point is that, so since the proof is bigger and it involves something things, if you now start recalling from the top to bottom, we may not, one or two steps you may forget. That may happen, but you can do it fully. So I request you that please go through once. Yeah. Okay, go ahead if you want to say something.
Okay, so we have proved the Lagrange's theorem of 4 squares. Just sort of summing it up, if we are given a positive integer n, we can write it as a product of its prime factors. And we proved that for if n is equal to n1 into n2, then it can be such that n1 and n2 are both can both be represented as sum of 4 squares. Then n can also be represented as sum of 4 squares. But here n can have more than 2 prime factors. So what we can do repeatedly, we can apply Euler's identity. And the second thing is, so now n is equal to product of prime factors, and we just proved that every prime can be written as sum of 4 squares. So combining these two results, we have the proof for the theorem. And okay, that's it. And just one last example. So if we have this number 4550, we can write it as a sum of 4 squares. What we can do is, so 4550 is equal to 2 into 5 square into 7 into 13. So 5 square, we don't have to do anything about that. We can write 2 as a sum of 4 squares, 7 and 13 also the same way. And we can use Euler's identity that we had just seen and multiply those, and we can get the final expression for 4550 as sum of 4 squares. If we want, we can do it. I can just sort of write it on a text box.
That's okay. Yeah.
Okay. That's it, sir.
Okay, very good. Done. Okay, actually, we have another time is available, but is there anyone ready? Okay, we do one thing that Thursday also will meet, and the next Monday also will meet to close it. Okay. Right. Yeah. So today we'll stop here. Unless somebody want to start, no problem for me. Is anyone coming forward? Okay. So then we will meet in the next class. Okay. Just I'll stop recording first.